Hi, this is a brief history lecture on male homosexuality, mostly focusing on the 1890s to the 1930s. A large part of this lecture uses Daniel Hurwitz's Bohemian Los Angeles and George Chauncey's 1994 masterpiece, Gay New York, as a launching pad for historical analysis. A brief section on male homosexuality in the 1910s to 30s, Long Beach, and its criminalization also appears at the end of this lecture. This lecture starts with what Horowitz calls third spaces. Where do minority, underrepresented, or in this case, gay homosexual men gather? Well, third spaces is the answer. Although homosexuality was greatly frowned upon and quickly became illegal by the 30s, a vibrant gay underground network existed in Los Angeles. And Chauncey shows the community flourished in New York City. These third spaces are still within the city, but on the fringes, subspaces. Although not entirely on the margins of society, Bohemian LA thrived. Gay men and straight people knew where to go for whatever companionship they were looking for. And although it wasn't center stage, it wasn't completely hidden. Life on the run is a term used to describe these gay networks and hangouts. And according to Horowitz, it was Edendale, modern day Echo Park, and Silver Lake that was the center of male homosexuality in the early 1900s. Edendale was, quote, the first real movie studio in Los Angeles. It was the spot where early shorts like the Keystone Cops were filmed. And although homosexuality existed in other parts of Los Angeles, Edendale was a central point of male homosexuality, Hollywood filmmaking, and other cultural elements, more frequently known as the arts, theater, music, writing, and such. Now, what specific third spaces did gay men find while on the run? Places that were either entirely created for gay men or establishments that allowed such third spaces to thrive, such as bathhouses, bars, and restaurants, including Jimmy's Backyard and BBB Cellar in Los Angeles. Gay encounters also happen at saunas, streetcars, or public restrooms along transit routes, parks, and bars, among others. Pershing Square, in the core of downtown Los Angeles, was also a third space for gay men on the run in the City of Angels. Horowitz writes that downtown Los Angeles was the heart of life on the run. George Chauncey's masterpiece, first published in 1994, accomplishes many things, including the following three. It destroys three myths. Number one, the myth of isolation. Sure, an anti-gay world existed, but so did a vibrant gay culture throughout the city. It was not a centerpiece attacked by local and state governments, at least not yet. 2. The myth of invisibility. Gay life was in the public, it was not entirely hidden. And number 3, the myth of internalization. Gay men internalized negative stereotypes as normal. That is untrue. Now, the largest transit system in the world became an undeniable locale for gay sexual encounters. Gay men appropriated these types of public spaces and re-territorialized the city in order to construct a vibrant gay New York in the midst of the, quote, normal city. Extending to all 5 boroughs, Manhattan, Brooklyn, Queens, the Bronx, and Staten Island, gay homosexual life was abundant and well connected. But it was the Bowery, well known as an ideal hangout for vice, fun, and homosexuality, that was a centerpiece. At least 6 Bowery gay-style halls existed. Many more bars in the area served gay and lesbians unknowingly. Prostitution was also available. Not only a place for male homosexuality, saloons had other features as well. Bars were well-visited centers for working-class Americans. They were vibrant social gathering places for union organizing, community centers, and even acted as banks. loaning money to people who couldn't get loans through traditional means. Here's a picture of Bowery boys in drag with the map of the Bowery that follows. The Bowery was also an ethnically diverse center of Italians and Jews that were replacing Irish, Germans, and other native-born white Americans, among others. Chauncey also illuminates there was no significant hetero-homosexual division between these groups. The diversity seemed to work in the Bowery. Bowery lesbians at Bowery gay-friendly saloons. Here is Turkish baths were also a popular place for homosexual encounters. Many still exist today. Here's an undated photo of the Bowery 10-cent Turkish bath with patrons. Chauncey also illuminates the complexities and genders of male homosexuality. For example, although the Catholic Church and Jewish religions condemn homosexuality, premarital man-to-woman sex was also frowned upon. As such, one man interviewed by Chauncey described because of men-to-women sin, men-to-men sin, quote, wasn't seen as that bad, end quote. Men with briefcases heading to Turkish baths in the Big Apple, and according to the sign, they never closed. This is another example of how gay men appropriated public spaces and re-territorialized the city in the midst of the normative city, according to Chauncey. And unlike the tourist trap of today, Times Square and vicinity was once a center for adult entertainment, for straight and gay activity. Check out old movies like Taxi Driver to get a better sense of what this was like. Now, in New York, gay masquerade balls were large, in vogue social events where thousands gathered. The largest event attracted more than 9,000 straight and gay people, with people as young as 15 and as old as 89. Chauncey writes that, quote, black man turned Harlem into a homosexual mecca at places like the Cotton Club, Connie's Inn, Barron's, and the Lenox. The Hamilton Lodge Ball was the largest annual gathering of lesbians and gay men in Harlem, attended by diverse people including transvestites, heterosexuals, Catholics, sailors, soldiers, and off-duty cops. According to Chauncey, many Harlemites found the participation of whites to be intriguing rather than disturbing. With such established gay enclaves within the so-called straight world, gay guides were created to let local and tourists know where they were welcome, tolerated, and where to avoid. In this example is a spring 1968 gay green book. Now back to LA. Significant parts of gay Edendale lifestyle revolved around the art scene. It was Edendale artists that constructed a community for themselves around the passion of artistic expression, writes Hurwitz. Art was the glue that binded many straight and gay people in early 20th century Edendale. Quote, within their community structures, the artists of Edendale framed a discussion parallel to the courtroom arguments about the continuity of sexual desires and the relationship between those inner desires and external behaviors. Jake Zaytlin's Bookstore was a central third space in Los Angeles, started with his partner Ward Ritchie. People need a place to congregate and share ideas. The Bookstore was such a place. This is similar to Harvey Milk's San Francisco Castro Cameras in the 1970s that forged the first openly gay councilman in the United States. Now, among the gay and artistic community of LA, the Club was a place for Edendale artists. These places allowed people to congregate and attracted other artists and professionals such as librarians, printers, authors, and publishers. Historian Kevin Starr called Edendale, quote, the Bohemian quarter of the 1920s and 30s and the closest thing Los Angeles had at the time to an artist quarter. Edendale was also a place for local Disney artists who used the space to unwind after dealing with, quote, man is in the forest or the anti-labor Walt. And I ain't talking about Walt Whitman either. However, like all good things must come to an end, the fear of gay men began to flourish. Like many aspects in American history and culture, a fear of the other rose in the 1920s and 30s. Americans feared Native Americans, Black Americans, freed and enslaved, Mexicans, Chinese. They didn't like Japanese. They didn't like people that were considered unpatriotic, communists, and now a new enemy. Americans grew fearful of men who liked other men, and they quickly became targets of established agencies, especially local and state governments, which moved to make any perceived homosexual acts illegal. One of the greatest fearmongers and LA anti-vice leaders was Clifford Clinton, who hired private investigators to track 1,800 bookies, 603 brothels, and 23,000 pinball and slot machine games, forming Civic, Citizens Independent Vice Investigating Committee. I wonder how long it took him to come up with that name. For those that don't know, Clifton was the same Clifton from the famous Clifton Cafeteria on Broadway, and I believe they had another locale. So from a vibrant gay culture the straight world knew existed, quickly the criminalization of homosexuality occurred and became stereotypical in ways known in the public eye today. Police beatings, intimidation, trumped up charges, letting employers know you're gay so you can be fired, and more harassment of homosexual men occurred, especially by law enforcement. In Los Angeles, anti-gay hysteria was helped from the newly formed LA Sex Bureau. Sex offenders caught were photographed, and the agency recorded the men's sexual MOs. Specifically, gay offenders who were caught now required a psychiatric examination. Homosexuality was eventually classified as a mental disorder in the greatest and freest country in the world. Now, as part of LA's Sexual Bureau, the search for the quote, sexual pervert existed. The sexual pervert was a sex offender registry of convicted perverts was also created, which became a statewide registry. The LA Sex Bureau focused on the sexual perverts. A sexual pervert wasn't necessarily someone who was gay, but someone who wasn't practicing normal social behaviors, i.e., a man who inverted sex and gender codes, end quote. That was a sexual pervert, someone who didn't follow along with the norms. In this country, many times in history, conformity is everything. Even if men committed sodomy, few gay men were arrested and actually charged with sodomy. They were most often charged with lewd and lascivious conduct or lewd vagrancy. And yes, I'm proud of myself for saying that word. It took me forever. Lascivious. The sex perversion law became an infamous after a well-publicized arrest for gay men in the city of Long Beach. Sexual perversion was specifically identified as oral sex, which was a felony and distinct from anal sex. As anti-gay legislation increased, so did arrests. From the 1920s to the 40s, up to 95% of arrestees of sex perversion were men. And to be technical, men could also be arrested for oral sex on women. And let's change the slide. An important event in the rise of an anti-gay movement was the infamous arrest of 31 men by undercover police in the city of Long Beach. The bathhouse was the one that was just pictured. What made matters worse was the names of people arrested, not convicted, just arrested. They were printed in the LA Times. Threatened by being out and the social consequences that entail being out in the 19 teens, John Lamb, who was 31, and a prominent Long Beach banker and church officer, committed suicide. Long Beach recital of shameless men. Here are the Times articles detailing the events and where their names were printed. The sensational headlines: Long Beach moral cleanup just begun. Spooners on the sand to follow the grist of social vagrants. Also worth noting, quote, while Mayor Welting and Police Commissioners W.H. Wallace and W.N. Vander Walter are trying to open the canker and let the rottenness out, they said of gay activities. Nothing will then remain of the celebrated case except the $5,275 in fines collected from the 31 and 7 unfortunates now serving 6-month sentences in the county jail for allegedly having relationships with other men. And a total fees of $5,275 in 1915. Based on the chart, the amount of sex perversion charges boomed, and it looks like, but 1947, it was just about 450 per year. Besides being outed, being known as gay, or at least arrested in anti-gay dragonites, it also had serious consequences. Your name could be published in newspapers, possibly ruining your social status, including your job, keeping elected and appointed positions within society. A 15-year jail sentence was also a possibility, and passing a psychiatric exam determined if you could be cured and then eventually released. In New York City, gay public meeting spaces were well known to gay men, but they were also known to local authorities, mainly anti-vice societies and the NYPD. Raids ravished the thriving gay community. Gay men like Charles Griffiths, who frequented gay bathhouses to woo sexual partners, were caught up in NYPD efforts that targeted homosexuality activity, not targeting heterosexual activity for the most part. Gay men like Donald Vinning could serve a prison sentence as brief as several days or as long as 7 years, as was the ruling offered against an Irish pantryman convicted of sodomy with 9 partners. During the 1920s and 30s, hundreds of gay men were arrested in New York, and the number of men convicted in Manhattan for homosexual solicitation leapt from 92 in 1916 to 238 in 1918 and to more than 750 in 1920, an 8-fold increase in 4 years, according to Chauncey. In addition, more than 500 gay men were arrested each year during the 1920s. In spite of the hundreds of gay men arrested annually for violating homosexual laws, gay men did not significantly alter their behavior in order to prevent becoming victims of raids. In fact, raids became a part of their culture. Chauncey writes how gay men arranged deals with the NYPD. While most gay men did not speak out against anti-gay policing so openly, gay organizers were often able to secure police authorization for their balls. In other attempts to limit the amount of raids, it was rumored that cops were paid to ignore gay baths, according to Chauncey. And by 1969, gay acts were illegal in 49 states. From the 1890s, homosexual third spaces thrived in LA and New York, then was outlawed over the next few decades. By 1969, the gay rights movement bloomed out of necessity. It will take until 2015 until gay men and women were protected by the Constitution and could legally marry. But the struggle continues. In many states, you could be fired from your job if they found out you were gay and this is right now. Thank you for listening. Have a great day.